In the last lecture module, we talked about what information superabundance is. We looked at a couple of metaphorical ways to understand just how much information is available in the contemporary human information ecosystem. And in this module, what we want to do is turn our attention to how does any system manage so much information when it's reached this point of information superabundance, where it's gathering so much information it cannot process it all. What does it do in order to somehow find the information that it needs and still take advantage of that massive pool of information it has available to it? And the example I want to point to is an example from the human visual system. Now here we have a picture of the eye. And the average eye has about 120 million rods, photosensitive cells, and about 6 million cones, also photosensitive cells. And most of the cones in the eye, the ones that are responsible for color vision, are located in the very small area. It takes up about 1% of the total retina. And this is where it is in your retina. And it is called the fovea. Now, the fovea is this very small area at the back of your eye that has tightly packed all these cones, so it's good for color vision. It's also good for detailed vision. It's the only part of the eye that you can really get 20/20 vision in. So this very small area of the retina actually has huge parts of the visual cortex devoted to processing that information. And what we discovered then is that even though there's this enormous collection of photosensitive cells, the amount of information available, were it to be processed in the same manner that we process the information coming from the fovea, would basically require our heads to be pretty much the size of bathtubs. There's just too much information for us to process for detail and color across the entire visual field. So what do? What did the visual system evolve to solve, or at least deal with, this problem? Well, the visual system came up with this sort of clever solution. It would only process a very small area of the visual field, the area that falls on the fovea, with that kind of detail for color, for detail, and so on. It would use the rest of the retina as a sort of lower resolution detection system, but it would foveate. It would move the eye around to focus on the particular areas that it needed that detail, that color, etc. information about. So in essence, what it did is it took the world and it said, I'm going to use the world as a storage device. So use the visual field to store its information. And I'm going to use the fovea to get the information that I need in really high resolution, or where color discrimination is important. I'll use the rest of the fovea as a sort of lower resolution. It's also got a lot of night vision and motion detection going on. So it split up the tasks and it employed this strategy. Now, this strategy of foveating to a particular area is a pretty successful strategy. And our brains have evolved so that we don't even realize that our eyes are constantly darting around. But every strategy involves a certain amount of trade-offs. And so what I'll show you in this video is a video of one of the trade-offs that results from this information strategy, managing strategy, that the visual system has employed to deal with the information superabundance that it has at the back of the eye with all these photosensitive cells. why is it that we don't notice these gradual changes that are occurring in the visual scene, even though they're occurring right before our eyes? Well, the answer has to do with this strategy for managing information superabundance. In essence, your brain is really only updating its representation of the visual scene when it's foveating, focusing that really small, highly detailed collection area on a particular part of the visual scene. So if a change occurs slowly, or if a change occurs in an area where you're not currently foveating, you are blind to that change. You just don't notice it because your brain has made this trade-off where it doesn't update the entire visual scene in great detail. It only updates the things that it happens to foveate on at a particular moment.